In this lesson, we're going to be using our original green fish animation to create a straggler at the back of the school of fish. Okay, so I went in between our lessons and just fixed that pop and just tweaked a few of the settings just to get the timing a little bit better with everything else. But we still went over all of the same exact steps that I did. And also, if you do have trouble with that glitch that Particular has, it's unfortunate, but if you do have that popping issue, I've also found that if you come up here to the emitter type and change that, we were working with a box. If you just change it from a few different ones, you can settle back on box. I actually found that I just like the way that sphere looked a little bit better. You still have the emitter size options, but I like how it starts to taper at the end a little bit more, so it's smaller instead of here at the end, it's kind of this whole width of that, or the whole height of the comp. So up to you how you want that to look. So what I want to do now is create a straggler using that fish that we had kind of in the beginning. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead, grab that green fish swim, and we'll hit Control D to duplicate him. And then let's just pull him up so he's one layer below the school of fish. I'm just going to scrub forward, and I want him to come on right about here, so it looks like he is behind everybody else. So I'm just going to pull that forward to that point, and we'll turn on the eyeball so that we can see that fish. And he's a lot brighter than the other fish, simply because their motion blur makes them so transparent. So we may need to end up turning his transparency down a little bit, but if you just go ahead and turn on his motion blur switch, we'll see what we can do just using that. So go ahead and hit the P key with that layer selected to bring up his position, and let's pull him back a little bit to the side, just like that. We'll go ahead and set a keyframe. He's also a little bit large, so I'm going to go ahead and select that, hit the S key, and let's scale him down a little bit just so he's not so big. And then you may want to move him forward a bit as well. Let's go ahead and take a look at the keyframe we set for our position. So you can just hit the U key to bring up any keyframes that you've set on a property. And we'll scoot forward, just kind of scrub forward on the timeline to about right here where all the other fish have gone. And then let's pull him across here. Now let's just scrub to see what that looks like. Pretty cute. Okay, so one of the things that I want to change is just his path of motion. So right now he's very much swimming in a straight line. So I want him to kind of weave around a little bit more. So what we can do really easily to change that is just to use the Convert Vertex tool. So come up here to your pen tool and hold that down and choose that one that looks like kind of an upside down V, and that's your Convert Vertex tool. Then you can just come in here and start to pull those handles out by clicking on your vertex or your keyframe. It's kind of the same thing. And now you've changed that interpolation. So now you've changed your spatial interpolation by changing those vertexes and the handles on them. Now, one other thing you might want to change is his orientation, because right now he just looks like he's going straight ahead. He's not really following the path with his face. So to change that really easily, all you have to do is come up here to Layer, and you're going to go to Transform and choose Auto Orient and choose Orient Along Path. Say OK to that, and you see he turned his nose up just a little bit when we click that. So now you can see how that layer is pointing straight down, and he kind of starts to even out, goes up, and then his nose starts to go down right there. So he just looks a lot more natural that way. And you can change the timing of this if you want to. Maybe you want it to last a little bit longer, so maybe he exits much sooner than this. Let's go ahead and hear what the narrator is saying just to make sure he doesn't need to be out of the way.
Over 1 million species. 1 million.
Okay, so what we're going to be doing later on is introducing the text for over 1 million species. So I think what we can do is just pull this down a little bit. So he's actually higher in the beginning and lower at the end. That way, if we bring in that text from the top, he'll have already completed that part of the path. So that just makes a little bit more sense for the way we want him to come in here. So he's just kind of lazily swimming along, doesn't really care that he's behind everybody else. Maybe pull that back just a little bit, just so they're in the frame at the same time for a little while. Still, I just don't want him to have too much motion blur that he's not as visible. Okay, so this looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and maybe turn his transparency down just a little bit because he does look a little bit brighter than those. So go ahead and select him, hit the T key, and we'll just drag that opacity property down. Just about, looks like 78, maybe just do an even 75. Now he's really close in transparency with those other fish, and that just looks a lot better. Okay, so we went ahead and just added that fish in as a straggler, just created that motion path for him and used the auto orient. All of those things very, very helpful for just kind of completing this as a whole, just making it have that much more personality. I think one other thing we could do at this point, just to help our timing of everything, is and really just to make the whole thing come together, is to make it feel like the current that these fish are creating by swimming past carries away this text that says the state of the reefs and overview, and the little line that you see here. So what I want to do just to animate those all together is to parent them to the state of, because that's one of the most straightforward pieces that we have. So I'm just going to scrub forward a bit so that all of the text is completely revealed, and then we'll parent everything to the word the state of. So that's going to be this little line layer right there, and overview and the reefs. Then we'll just go ahead and grab the parenting pick whips and choose the state of. Let's make sure that didn't change anything strangely. They still look the same in their animation. And now all we have to do is change the position of the state of's property. So go ahead and select that, hit the P key to bring that on. And just right about here where the fish really start to move things around, let's go ahead and set a position keyframe. And then let's move forward just to right about here. And we can animate that over. And you can see now everything is following that text. So just right when that goes off, we'll just go ahead and end it right there. And that looks pretty good. That looks like they're pushing that along. We'll watch a rain preview.
Over 1 million species of plants and animals are reefs. In overview.
Okay, so I love the way that this is looking. Maybe we want to scoot these forward just a little bit more so they're not picked up quite so early, so we can still hear the words in overview before it goes away. Just like that. Now, one of the things I want to change is just this first keyframe. Instead of it moving just at that instant linear speed, let's ease into it. So one way to change a keyframe interpolation temporally, instead of just going through the animation keyframe assistant here, you can simply right click the keyframe and go to the keyframe assistant there, which I find is a little bit faster. Now for this, you could either choose easy ease or easy ease out. You're going to get the same result as far as moving out of that keyframe. But what I want to do is add an even slower ease to this than what you get just with the default. So let's go into our graph editor and we'll just pull that handle out. I didn't pull it out quite all the way, but gave it a good little push. So we'll go ahead and watch this through. So that looks pretty good, but I think now we could maybe start it a little bit earlier. So let's pull that back since it's going to be so slow at the beginning, and then pull that one forward a bit and watch it.
In overview. Over 1 million.
Maybe even a little bit further. And maybe even go into the graph editor and make it not quite so extreme. Let's watch this.
In overview. Over 1 million species.
Okay, I want to make sure that by the time the fish have exited almost all the way, the state of the reefs is gone. So let's pull this back to about there.
In overview. Over 1 million species of plants.
Okay, this looks great. I'm really happy with the timing that we've got there. Really, really nice. Slow ease out. Looks a lot better than just leaving that linear And it feels like it starts to pick up momentum as the current that those fish are creating gets stronger and stronger the more fish are in the picture. So really, really nice way to start this off, and I'm really happy with that. So in our next lesson, we've kind of, created this really nice transition to be able to bring in the next piece of our text, which is where you've probably heard, just kind of as we've scrubbed a little bit too far forward, him talking about over 1 million species. So we're going to address that part of the text in the next lesson.